US better believe that there are a ton of options out there when it comes to USB microphones to level up the quality of your audio. But today, we're going to See-ity if the Deity VO-7U 7 has what it takes to be the mic for you. And so right now you're actually not listening to the Deity, you're listening to the Sennheiser MKH50, which is like a $1,200 microphone. The Deity is a $169 microphone. So this is a Sennheiser and this is the Deity, I can't ever remember it, VO-7U. I've tried to remember that like a million times. Just for the sake of disclosure, Deity did send me this microphone free of charge. I don't have to make a review about it and I don't have to say anything specific about it. I just chose to make a review about it because I think it's very interesting since it is Deity's first foray into the world of USB microphones geared towards streaming and podcasting. And this does come in a black or white version. Obviously I have the white version. It's like even almost overexposed on my shot here. So while the microphone itself retails for $169, the version that they sent me, which includes this boom arm, is $199. And the boom arm itself, might need to switch back to the Sennheiser for this. It's not quite on the level of something like the Rode PSA-1, which is more expensive. But if you're looking at, here, back on the Deity now. If you're looking at the cost of the microphone is $169, the cost of the kit with the boom arm and everything is $199. Is the boom arm worth an extra $30? Definitely, especially if you don't already have a boom arm. It's really long. I don't know if you can see how long this boom arm is. Here is a Rode PSA-1, and if I put this here, it's significantly bigger and longer than the Rode PSA-1. Now that's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, it's just a thing, but if you need a boom arm with a long reach, this might really work for you. I'm standing up right now, and it has plenty of height to be positioned at any angle. If you're in a compact space, this arm might even be a little bit too big. It's definitely right in the range of like the $50 and $60 like Samson boom arms. It's very similar to those. And just like any dubstep song from 2013, it comes with a great bass. The mount that goes on this boom arm is very similar to the Rode PSA-1 mount, which I love because, as I've talked about many times, it positions the weight of the boom arm directly over your desk or your tabletop, not hanging off the side. This one does that too, and it's built out of metal, but it also has a really cool feature, which is a built-in headphone hanger. Pretty awesome and super helpful. I haven't really seen that on any other mounts or clamps, and I think that that's really cool. The only downside to that is depending on the thickness and the design of the table that you're mounting it to, there may or may not be room for it. My table here is only about an inch thick and there's nothing blocking anything from clamping to it, so this works great. But if you're using something like this desk over here that has sort of a lip on it, the headphone hanger might actually get in the way a little bit. I think it's safe to say it's going to work on most standard desks and tabletops, but just something to be aware of. I just did a scientific test and it does fit into the Rode clamps. So Rode also makes those grommets that you can drill directly into a desk or a tabletop. You could potentially then use one of those for this boom arm as well. So long story long, if you don't have a boom arm, the extra $30 to get the kit that comes with one is probably really worth it. Otherwise, I always love something like the PSA-1 or the PSA-1 Plus. And the mic also comes with a windscreen and two different USB-C cables. One is USB-C to USB-C and the other is USB-C to USB-A. So pretty much no matter what computer you're using, you're gonna be able to use this microphone with it. Now, one of the things I actually do not like about this microphone is the quality of the headphone monitor. It's not as good as the actual microphone. And this threw me off because when I first got the microphone and I plugged in my headphones here and I listened to it and I kind of thought, ooh, that does not sound like I would have expected it to. But then I listened back to the recording without any kind of processing or anything. What you're hearing right now has no processing put on it, which I guess is a good thing because it would be much worse if the recording sounded worse than what you're hearing here. But what you're hearing here when you're monitoring is going to sound worse than what you're outputting or recording. But it would be great if it was perfectly accurate so you could really hear what everything sounds like. That's really my one big gripe with the microphone, but otherwise it works and sounds really well. I've used it not just to make this video, but I've used it on other projects, including some like paid client projects and stuff like that. It does have a built-in yoke, which has a standard 5/8 mount, and it does something really cool that not a lot of microphones beyond the pod mic do, which is the mounting point has 5/8 and 3/8 built into it, so you don't need adapters to make this work on any kind of standard boom arm. And the windscreen, of course, is very important, so this is Peter Piper pitched a podcast. So it definitely helps to have this on, and I would recommend using this most of the time, but of course it does change the visual style and the visual appeal of the microphone, which, speaking of, there's two dials on the side of the microphone, one for your headphone volume and one for the actual microphone's output volume. If I press and hold the microphone one, oh boy, there's the RGB lighting. Here, maybe if I turn off my key light. There we go. Now you can see the RGB colors come to life right here. This is one of those really polarizing features that some people love and other people really, really hate. And it seems like there's very few people in the middle. Just know that, kind of like I showed, you can turn this off just by holding down the microphone button. And then you can also cycle through different colors. So there's the rainbow one, there's red, there's different like hue shifts and different effects that you can go through. So if you have a specific color that's connected to like your brand or whatever it might be, your visual style, you can probably find that on here and use that. And I think that's pretty fun. My favorite is the rainbow spectrum thing because it's got all the colors in it and I like that. Then there is a physical mute button on the side of the microphone that when I press it, the ring will then glow red. Are you ready? And then I turn it back on and you can hear what I'm saying. I think that's pretty cool. It could potentially be distracting if you mute yourself on a call and people just see this flashing red ring right here. But it is one of those things where in a world where, let me turn on my key light, in a world where we live on video calls a lot more than we used to, and half of the discussion seems to be, you're on mute, we can't hear you, you're definitely not going to be surprised that you're on mute because you got this big glowing red ring right there. There's no app or anything that comes with this, so you just run it through whatever software you want to use, and you can adjust it that way if you need to, but this is how it sounds directly out of the microphone. Now, it does say that it comes with a built-in hardware limiter, so that should help if things get really loud from having stuff clip too much, although of course it's definitely possible to clip on the microphone, and it is just plug and play, so it doesn't really matter what computer platform you're using, even if you're using it with a mobile device like an iPad or a phone with an adapter like a USB-C adapter, you can still use the microphone and still use every feature of the microphone through that. Now, one thing you might have noticed as I was flipping through all those dials is the handling noise. This microphone is pretty susceptible to handling noise, which just means that once you have it in position, you probably want to leave it there and be pretty minimal with how much you move it afterwards. Even though I'm not personally a USB microphone user, I tend to prefer XLR microphones because they excel at giving you a lot of variety. Once you have the infrastructure for an XLR mic setup, like you have a mixer or an interface and maybe a mic booster, the variety of microphones that you can get is just huge. And I'm somebody who really likes playing around with microphones and trying out different microphones. So XLR just kind of is the way to go for me. But USB has a simplicity of not needing any of that extra stuff, just connecting it to your computer or even a tablet or a mobile device and being all set. That makes it really easy to recommend these to people who are just getting started. The two biggest downsides, in my opinion, to USB microphones is the lack of options. There just aren't as many of them as there are XLR microphones, and the difficulty in using multiple microphones together. Rode has been working around this with their Connect app, so if you use certain Rode USB microphones, you can use multiple microphones together, but then you're limited to using those specific microphones. You can't mix and match all the different USB microphones from different brands that you might have. So in general, if you're using a USB microphone, you should probably plan on just using one microphone at a time. If you need to use multiple microphones, that's where diving into the world of XLR mics makes a lot more sense. But speaking of other USB microphones, I thought it might be helpful to do a comparison just so you can hear the difference between the Deity VO-7U and other microphones that I have that are in that price range. This isn't an exhaustive list of every USB microphone you can get here. These are just the ones that I happen to have. And in fact, to try to make this a little more helpful, I brought in a special guest. It's very hard contractually to work this out. This is my lovely wife, Heather, so I'm gonna have her also test all the microphones that I test so you can hear how they sound on a male voice and a female voice. So let's start our comparison with the Samson Q9u. This is the Deity VO-7U, and this is the Samson Q9u, which retails for $199. So this microphone by itself costs the same as the entire kit with the boom arm of the Deity, but there are a few cool things about the Samson. It, I think, is a great sounding microphone. It does have some options in the back to adjust mids and high pass. So this is with the mid turned on, and then this is with the low pass filter turned on, sorry, not high pass. and then this is with both of those turned off, so that way this is how it sounds directly out of the box. It does also have a mute switch, but there's no light or anything, so you can't necessarily tell when the button is on or off, other than the fact there's no sound coming out of the microphone. The biggest benefit to the Q9u, I think, is that it's a USB and XLR microphone, so it's very versatile, and that means it's something that you could grow with if you get it to use as a USB microphone, but then you start using it as an XLR microphone later on.
This is how I sound on the Deity VO-7U. This is how I sound on the Samson Q9u, a $200 XLR USB microphone.
And now again, this is the Deity, and the next microphone we're going to compare is the Rode NT USB Mini. Small microphone, big sound. This is the Rode NT USB Mini. This is about a $100 microphone. This is one of the microphones that will work with Rode's Connect app. So if you want to use multiple USB microphones together, you can connect them all through the Connect app and use multiple, up to 4 of these together. This is a very well built and I think a very good sounding microphone. The only downside is that even though it comes in this little adorable stand, if you set the stand on a table and talk like normal, it's so mini, the microphone is almost too far away. So I think this is a great choice if you have something like a boom arm or a stand that's going to let you position the microphone closer to your mouth, because the stand is just magnetically attached, and then you can connect this to any traditional microphone mount. And there is a physical headphone volume dial on the front, and that is the Rode NT USB Mini.
This is the Deity, and next will be the NT USB Mini. Most of us know all about the original photo encabulator, but for many years, engineers have been working to bring perfection to the crudely conceived idea of a device that would not only supply inverse reactive current for use in unilateral phase detractors, but would also be capable of automatically synchronizing not just cardinal gram meters, but also cardinal Grant meters. Your Grammys and your Grampies.
And yet again, this is the Deity. And speaking of small microphones with big sound, you might remember the Rode VideoMic GO II. This is a great one because it does also function as a USB microphone. So this is the Deity, and this is the Rode VideoMic GO II. This is another $100 microphone, but the added versatility, of course, is that it's really made to be mounted on top of a camera, and it has a 3.5mm jack that allows you to connect it to your camera, so you can use it that way. When it's connected via USB, the 3.5mm jack becomes the headphone jack. You can kind of hear some handling noise there. So this could be a really fun, really versatile, really affordable choice for a good USB microphone if you also want to use your microphone on your camera when you're making videos.
This is the Deity, and this is the Rode VideoMic GO II. Now we've got the upgraded deluxe photo encabulator. Basically, the only new principle involved is that instead of AV imagery being generated by the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, it's produced by the modal interaction of neo-magneto-reluctance and capacitive directance.
And I don't think it would be fair to do a USB microphone comparison without comparing the Blue Yeti. I know that there's a reputation and there's a stigma and there's a taboo with the Blue Yeti. That's a topic for a whole separate video, but this is the Deity. This is the Blue Yeti. The Blue Yeti has models that range in price, but it's usually about $100, maybe a little more. And it was kind of the ubiquitous USB microphone, especially in the earlier days of YouTube and streaming. But right now you can just listen to what it sounds like, hopefully as objectively as possible. A couple downsides in terms of build and design are that it does take a mini USB cable, which is just less up to date now than it ever was. And if you want to mount this on a different stand besides the stand that it comes with, you have to take it out of this stand, and it's a little bit of a clunky process, but then you can mount this on any other microphone stand. This is the Blue Yeti.
This is the Deity, and this is the Blue Yeti. The lineup consisted simply of 6 hydroscopic Marsal vanes, so fitted to the ambifacent lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented.
And the last two comparisons might not be super fair because they're in a sort of different price category. This is the Rode VideoMic NTG. This is the Rode VideoMic NTG, and just like the VideoMic GO II, even though it's designed to be used on a camera, it can also be used as a USB microphone. The difference between this and the Deity is that this retails for $250, so it's more expensive than the most expensive version of the Deity, but it is pretty versatile if you want to use it on a camera. It is battery powered, so that means it's quite a bit more sensitive and does have some more nifty built-in features than the VideoMic GO II does. But again, if you're looking for a microphone that can function as a USB microphone and then also be used as your on-camera microphone, the VideoMic NTG could be the perfect choice.
This is the Deity, and this is the Rode Mic Video NTG. Rode VideoMic NTG. The original version had a base plate of prefabulated amulite, and amulite is fantastic, am I right? which was surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with the panometric fan.
And the last microphone that we'll compare the Deity to is the Shure MV7. The Shure MV7 has actually been one of my go-to mic recommendations for a while because it is a USB and XLR microphone, but of course it is more expensive than the Deity. The microphone by itself retails for $250, and the Deity is almost $100 less than that. But again, you do gain that XLR functionality. I really, really like the sound of this microphone. I think it's very, very close to the SM7B, which a lot of people really love. It's very well built. You do have some cool built-in touch controls here, and it does come with the Shure Motive app, which helps open up a lot of possibilities in terms of crafting the sound of the microphone in your computer, in your software, before you send it out to whatever recording or streaming you're going to be doing with it. The two biggest downsides to the MV7, in my opinion, are that it has a micro USB connector, which is just annoying. I really wish it were USB-C. And the other thing is just the windscreen that comes with the MV7 isn't that great. This is a colored windscreen from reporterstore.com that is for the Shure SM7B, but the SM7B windscreens fit right on the MV7. It's a dog hair on there. But I did notice that since the MV7's original release, they have updated the windscreen that comes with it, and it's a little bit thicker and a little better at rejecting plosives than the original one was. But this is the Shure MV7.
This is the Deity, and this is the Shure MV7. So I'm sure you can clearly see why the deluxe photo encabulator really does change everything. In fact, forget everything you thought you knew about encabulators.
Now we're back on the Deity VO-7U, and Heather, I had no idea that you knew so much about the deluxe photo encabulator.
Yes, and did you know that the use of anhydrous nangling pins enabled a cryptonastic boiling shim to be tinkered? And believe me, you don't want to tinker with the tanker.
Yikes. Despite the content of what was said, hopefully hearing two different voices on all the different microphones kind of gave you an idea of what different voices might sound like on the different microphones.
Yay.
When it comes to the way that I review microphones, I try to focus a little less on the technical specifications and a little more on how they perform in a real world or kind of an everyday application. So I try not to color that with my own personal opinion too much, but if you were to ask me who the Deity VO-7U is for, I think that it's for somebody who is looking to level up their audio, but doesn't want to just spend the absolute least amount of money to get the cheapest option. I reviewed something like the Fifine K669B, which is a really affordable USB microphone, and it turned out to be more than Fifine because it sounded pretty great. But if you want something that's a step above that, has some pretty cool features and some great sound quality, and you know, if you need like a whole kit that's made to come together, I think Deity is really good at understanding and addressing the needs of like independent content creators. But again, as with any microphone, it all comes down to your personal taste and your preference and your needs. This is pretty decent at rejecting background noise. So, you know, if I'm making noise and I go over here, it's supposed to be a pretty directional microphone. So the further away you are from it or the further away other sound is, it's obviously not going to sound as good, but that means that it could be a good choice if you're in a less than ideally treated environment. You don't have a lot of sound treatment in your space and you can be really close to the microphone. This could be a great option for you. But you've heard how it sounds on my voice, you've heard how it sounds on Heather's voice, so maybe you can use that to kind of help you decide how it might sound on your voice and how it might work for you in your own application. And speaking of things that sound great, thank you to everybody who helps support my channel through YouTube channel memberships and Patreon. And if you want to see how the Deity stacks up against other microphones, check out this playlist of mic reviews and comparisons right here.